Hey, my name is Mark, and I'll be talking about a recent case study in water pollution via coal mining in Alberta, plus research published in West Virginia on the practice of mountaintop mining and valley fill and its consequences to the environment in terms of water quality and public communication of science, with potential routes for mitigation in the future, both legally and socially. So, a recent issue from December 2023 to 2025 was that an Alberta government aquatic scientist named Colin Cook frequently published articles on water pollution and selenium contamination of water streams and surrounding ecosystems. He first contacted his superiors about briefing the Alberta Energy Regulator on a new, incomplete study of his about selenium contamination of water resources as a direct result of coal mining and even vacant mines decades after closure, alongside it being resultant of a failure of government policy with protecting these lands after scientists like Cook warned them of risk. The problem lies with how the Alberta government proceeded to handle this new research, and below is a summary of an article published by the Narwhal on Cook's strife in publishing. Instead of a normal process of interview, briefing, and publishing, there was a feud for almost 2 years where Cook would be instructed by superiors to withhold publishing of his work even after senior officials were notified, requests for interview voided or denied, and random exchanges before he was finally able to publish in October 2025. The Alberta government would also roll back a moratorium originally imposed after public backlash for cancelling some coal policy decisions in 1976. In December 2025, a new policy is announced requiring new mines to be either opened underground or have technology used to prevent selenium contamination to protect waterways, though would not apply to existing or advanced projects, including one such project in the Crow's Nest Pass region. As an aquatic scientist, it is Cook's job to study water bodies and examine their distribution, movement, and quality with respect to environment, wildlife, and humans. Determining the presence and source of acidic, metallic, or otherwise contaminating products is extremely important. Though with this issue seemingly concluded, can metallurgical coal seemingly constitute a wicked problem for Albertans? Well, this specific coal is a form of high-carbon bituminous coal due to be utilized in steel production instead of for generating electricity, as is with normal coal. It is made by heating high-carbon coal at high temperatures in the absence of oxygen, known as coking. And note that while coal is not a clean-burning fuel, higher carbon coals like anthracite are the cleanest of its known variants. Mountaintop mining and valley filling is a mining practice whereby upper elevation forests are clear-cut of all potential obstructions to the operation, and explosives are used to blast open rock, exposing buried coal bodies. During and after the expedition, all waste rock, also known as mine spoil, is simply discarded into adjacent valleys and lower elevation landings. As one could expect, this is not a healthy practice. For coal mines established with mountaintop mining strategies, many peer-reviewed studies both of MTMVF and water quality data in West Virginia streams indicate that severe environmental impacts occur as a direct result of this, and that mitigation efforts have been unable to counteract the effects of the coal mining, even continuing to expel contaminants decades after mine closure. When mine spoil is expelled into the landscape, the rocks can bury headwater streams, causing both permanent eventual loss of ecosystems reliant on the water, the resultant metallic or sulfuric components of the spoil leaching into the remainder of the streams directly. As such, there has been direct harm done to humans sourcing their food from selenium-contaminated fish, as well as the contraction of bodily diseases via those hospitalized by the inhalation of elevated levels of hazardous dust kicked up by the valleyfill activities and within the mines themselves. Chronic pulmonary disorders and hypertension, lung cancer, heart and kidney diseases, and a general risk of death are also among the concluded consequences. This study done in West Virginia also noted that health problems were observed in both men and women, and thus effects were not simply of direct occupational exposure to the predominantly male miners, but that of entire communities. With the conflict of further usage comes the known dangers to endangered or threatened species, as well as existing species being poisoned by runoff and pollution. The loss of carbon sequestering forces and/or old growth, while furthering production and use of fossil fuels, also encourages the acceleration of climate change and pollution in the Northern Hemisphere, affecting adjacent provinces aside from just Alberta. Despite this, though, Alberta is a leading producer of oil, coal, and natural gas in Canada, as well as it being a primary export. To simply up and halt mining practices, especially with their economies so heavily centered around fossil fuels, well, Canada included, would be devastating for the province. Thus, any amount of policy regarding coal production being more limited or regulated is already scarce, especially with the long-term conservative political governments known for being aversive to the mistreatment of fossil fuels. This, however, brings with it the consequence of the public losing faith either or both with the government they rely on, or the scientists making educated assessments on natural hazards and anthropogenic threats like those associated with coal mining and water pollution. The denial of community presentations erodes trust and transparency, while scientists personally are unable to submit their findings in peer-reviewed journals while basically being told to stuff it. This risks scientists leaving the workplaces and potentially traveling elsewhere, increasing the risk to the original areas as the risks also don't magically go away when they aren't observed anymore. While political and social debate about the ethics of MTMVF is still debated in North America, actual mitigation efforts would need to start at having a reason to care for the environment. Anyone paid not to care, lacking education on the subject, or being unconvinced in the wake of increased costs or delays is likely not going to do much to change how things are. In government, working with trained environmental consultants or licensed professional environmental scientists and toxicologists to develop greater political protection of environments and water resources is definitely a good step, even if a slow battle demanding educated politicians or community petition castings. An increase in the freedom of press and scientific communication would also help weather concerns both with public and private groups, as well as the scientists themselves, while governments gain accountability in terms of transparency and legitimate community support. A personal idea of mine is a new legally required consistent reporting to the public of new scientific research as well as initiatives on how to read, interpret, and access the primary scientific literature for all to see for themselves and act in accordance to. This can also stimulate local education and encourage more to enter the workforce with the drive to commit to any subfield, for whatever reason, even beyond environmental science. There is definitely a lot to work with, both negatively and positively with the subject, as water remains an increasingly critical resource alongside the world moving towards clean and alternative energy sources. With the extraction of metallurgic coal and fossil fuels in general comes all of the very well-known implications of their usage and the consequences thereof. In my opinion, for the threat that negligence brings and has been shown to occur many times already in countless studies, it would be quite stupid not to adhere to it for a change. Thanks.